Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on February the 3rd, 2016. I'm Ira Time, and that's Rolo T. You ready for this, Chris? You ready for this?
I am. However, Nick, I do have a tangent to pull us off on first.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Is it a long tangent? Can it be a long tangent?
It can be very long. I've witnessed the single greatest 60 minutes of television, Nick. I talk a lot about The Wire. You know, I'll recommend Lost to just about anybody. They're great shows. But I have found something even more spectacular. It is a series called Black Mirror, which is essentially like, from what I understand, it's basically like a Twilight Zone-esque series, 60-minute television, serials, just kind of with Baroque different stories, things like that. Made in Britain. It's on Netflix. I've only watched one episode of the series.
Okay.
And I won't ever watch any others because I know firmly for a fact that there is nothing greater than what I saw. Nothing else could surpass it. Because the first episode of this series is about the British Prime Minister, and he wakes up, they get him out of bed, and they're like, "Sir, you need to see something." And they show him a video. It was put on YouTube where one of the duchesses, or the princesses, was kidnapped, and she's like being forced to read something on camera. And she's been kidnapped. They want a demand, and because it was put up on YouTube, that means they can't hide this. The entire world has seen this. People have grabbed it and distributed it. You can't change that. It's out there. And they make a demand of the Prime Minister, but they don't demand money. They don't demand power. Anything like that. They make one single request to him. They demand that at 4 p.m. that day, on live television, the British Prime Minister fucks a pig. And it is 60 minutes of this premise taken 100% seriously.
So everyone's like, well, he just needs to fuck the pig, and the Prime Minister's like, can't we find this?
They're trying to. That's the thing. They're trying to find this guy. But it's like pure crazy fantasy where these were like the greatest kidnappers known to mankind. They left no trace. They left no signs, anything like that. They found the most obscure method to track these guys. They're like, well, we pulled the video off YouTube, figured out how many megabytes it was, then scanned the entire British network to find what places were uploading that exact size file at certain period last night, and we found some obscure old British university lab where it may have been happening. They go over there; it's a whole process. They get in there. It was just a proxy server that the hostage takers were screwing with them with, and it's 60 minutes of you slowly getting to the place where you're like, oh my god. He's gonna have to fuck this pig. And there's no winks to the camera. There's no this is pretty silly. It's 100% serious. What would the public do in this situation? How would the news react? How would his wife react to this news? And it's one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen in my life. It's impossible not when you see him walk into the room and there's the pig, and you're just like, oh my god, this is going to happen.
The pig's wearing a negligee. Rose petals.
Well, that's the thing. There are rules to this. The pig had to be alive, and a couple other small rules. But one of the big ones, he has to actually climax with the pig. He has to take it to orgasm. So he can't just put his dick in the pig. He has to finish. So that actually plays into it, because right before he goes out there, one of his secretary staff or something like that is just so you know, we put some material at a high level for you to help you, finish. And he walks into the room and it's the fucking pig, and then there's two TVs with the tamest still shot of lesbian porn on it. And you're if I was the Prime Minister, I'd be oh yeah, that was great, fellas. Yeah, jolly good show. Yeah, I'll jerk off to this static image of no nudity with two women on it while I fuck this pig. No, don't get a slideshow. Don't get videos. No, you've jolly good. Oh, I clearly see why I pay you all the big money.
Oh, good God.
You have to see it. If you do nothing else in your life, you have to watch the episode of Black Mirror where the Prime Minister fucks a pig. And this came out before the David Cameron thing was public.
Really?
They just, yeah, like a lot of people, it may still be a parody on it based on maybe rumors, because he did that back in college, so there might be some correlation. But I like to think it was just some hypothetical someone in the room came up with it. What if he had to fucking pig to save a hostage? And then it just went from there.
Wow.
I wanted to get us off on a good mindset and mood as we transition into our recommendations.
Just so you guys know, at least one of us is capable of enjoying something that is based around weird sex.
Yeah.
Before we dive into this thing. Okay, let's do this. The series that we are talking about this week is called Aki Sora. It's a series that was suggested to us a few times. I can't remember which recommendation in particular, which email in particular I took the recommendation off of. But it was, I think, every time said, this is a bad manga. Like, it's really bad. And it deals with the incestuous relationship between a brother and sister. Even with that, I had no idea that this was basically porn. It's like, there's a certain line, that you can cross when it comes to what is porn, And this series, I don't know if you can say it crosses the line. I think it basically, like, you turn around and then you turn back to look at it, and it has used its foot to erase the line, stepped 5 feet closer to you, and then draw a new line in front of itself. And it does that a few times, and then occasionally it just forgets to redraw the line or erase it. It's just like, no, it crossed it. It's porn, yeah. Because there is sex that happens in, like, every single chapter.
I think
and not
literally
not
every chapter has sex in it.
Not every chapter, especially not the end, but we'll talk about that at the end. But the grand majority, it's only a 30-chapter series, but the grand majority of it is like a sex scene per chapter. And I'm not talking like,
it's not like Fairy Tail. It's not like the stuff in Fairy Tail where you're like, oh, that's so shameless cheesecake.
And I'm not talking like discretion shots, where like you see, the two-backed beast or, something going on. You don't...
Nothing tasteful.
Not even like Game of Thrones or other HBO, Netflix. What's the other one? Showtime.
Yeah, Cinemax.
Yeah,
those also.
Cinemax, those kind of things. Nothing like that where it's like, oh, there's a little bit of,
yeah, we could show tits, so we're going to.
Right. It's like not like the kind where it's like, okay, the guy's wearing the sock and on his dick, and they're just kind of, but you don't see any genitalia. You don't see any genitalia in this. But that is literally the only thing you don't see, and it's only because there are just random white streaks of void over this kid's dick. Because they're just fucking, like, 10 pages per sex scene, basically. And, yeah, that's basically what there is to it. And so from that... I think a few times throughout the course of the show we've talked about, it's porn, whatever. If it gets you off, it gets you off. But you can find better porn than this, okay? I'm 26 years old. I'm a guy. I'm not ashamed to admit that I have read, watched, played porn in my life. I have experienced porn in my life. I've experienced much better porn than this. I don't think I've ever subjected myself to porn for as long as I subjected myself to this series without thinking even once, this is kind of hot. Because it's not. And part of that is the fact that the artwork is stupid. Like, I swear, everyone looks like a Ken doll. Like, the limbs look all weird. When boobs show up because there's all sorts of nipple shots in this. None of them look enticing. None of the faces look good. It's bad art. It's not sexy scenarios. All it is just like, it's incest. Or... that girl's an exhibitionist, or that kid's dressed up like a girl. It's not hot, and that's going to be a subjective thing. Like, if you do read this and you find it hot, okay, good for you. But I feel like it's weird that this series was popular enough to get to 30 chapters, and only ended because the law in Japan changed. I'm serious. It literally says there was like an announcement by the author that he could not continue publishing the first 3 volumes of this series because the law in Japan changed shortly before the series ended. And the reason why that was is because a bill was passed that forbids the portrayal of incestuous relationships, at least sexually or pseudo-sexually.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't draw the brother and sister banging anymore. So
he's like, well, fuck this.
That's half my manga.
It's like, there goes my notes. Who cares? Nothing left.
So it very suddenly just kind of they just very suddenly the main couple just very suddenly stops having sex at the end, and then the series just ends because like, well, what else am I gonna do? Just have him draw sex scenes with the other girls that he's not having incestuous relationships with, which he could have. But yeah, it is kind of fucked. It's like, well, shit, what am I gonna do? I have built this entire series around the premise that the older sister and younger brother are fucking, and that is way too much of this series. Like, it's just them having sex. Up until the end, every single interaction between Aki and Sora is just them having sex. It's they go to a new location, or they have a brief discussion, and then they have sex. If there is a chapter that centers on Aki, they have sex. That's all that's notable. Because there are other characters in this that have really weird things going on. There are characters that have some dramatic crux to them. They're not good, but literally Aki's only purpose up until like the last 5 chapters of the series is she has sex with Sora. I mean, which, by the way, why does everyone want to have sex with Sora?
We'll get into that because he's an enigma in and of himself. But I mean, the series is pornography. To call it anything else is splitting hairs. Early on, too, this series is purely just pornography because the narrative has as much depth and intelligence as, well, I've ordered this pizza and I don't have any money. Surely there's got to be another way I could pay for this. It's just an excuse for these characters to have sex. And at that point, I actually was enjoying this series in like a this is ridiculously bad kind of way because I couldn't critique it story-wise. It was just a bad porno. It was a lot of shitty premises used to get incestuous relationships and lots of fucking scenes, which did nothing for me. It's not my kink, it's other people's, let them have it. But I could laugh along with its silliness. Like, there's a point where Kasora is absurdly effeminate and a bitch, and his sisters are horribly mean to him. So it's just a chapter that starts and he's wearing his twin sister's school clothes. Because they just make him dress up like her and go to the store because they're shitheads. And he runs into this exhibitionist character, and it's like a big thing. Then he runs into her the next day, and he's in his male clothes, his boy clothes. And she's like, oh, hey, so you must like wearing female clothes around. I like going around naked, and how about you and me go on a date? And then, like, hard cuts to him. Oh, no, sorry. And her caveat is you need to show up in your wearing the girl clothes again. So, like, hard cuts to him on the date with her in the girl clothes. And he's like, why am I here? And I'm asking the same question. I'm like,
read to it.
You have no reason to. One, I don't know why you're wearing the girl clothes. You don't wear them because it's a kink for you. You wear it because they were physically forced into it. Two, you're in love with Aki right now, so I have no idea why you agreed to this date to begin with. Three, you're such a bitch. How did you get here? Like, do you just do everything someone tells you to? Like,
apparently, he's the ultimate sub. Apparently, he will just do whatever. He keeps on getting into these situations with every other character that he interacts with. I think there's literally 2 characters that he interacts with that he doesn't end up having sex with. One is his dad, which, there are lines that this series won't cross, We can have lesbians that, have Futanari fetishes, but we can't have yaoi in this. No, that won't fly. The other is his mom.
Yes.
Which, we talked about this. You were like,
I'm stunned.
Does he have sex with his mom at one point? And I'm like, actually, no. And it's like, you would think that would happen eventually.
But that's the thing. Like, when it's just dumb like that, when it's just a stupid porno with a lot of ridiculous premises, I was completely fine with it. I was going to be like, at the end of it, I was going to be like, all right, you can't really recommend a porno unless I know your kinks, but if you're into incest, go for it. However, that is not the entirety of this series.
Oh my god.
It tries to be more.
And that's honestly,
that's where it becomes a horrible series.
Well, the thing is, honestly, I was kind of with you as well at first, but then it starts doing insane shit, which we'll get into. And if it had continued doing insane shit all the way through, then I would be like, no, this is still kind of amazing. But then right at the end, which we will also get to, it tries to be very serious because it can't do brother-sister sex scenes anymore. So it tries to add actual drama to it. And that is where it gets pathetic. And stupid. Well, stupider. Stupidest, really. So, I guess, let's just start off with this. Because we've already talked about Sora.
And you said everything that needs to be said about Aki.
Because she's only there to have sex. Like, they try at the very end to do a little bit more than her, but I have no idea what makes her unique as a character, except that she is the older sister that Sora has sex with.
She's amusing because in the first chapter, it's kind of like Aki or Sora watching from afar. By the way, I forgot that you mentioned this was an incestuous manga when we picked it up. And I was like, I just knew it's some kind of bad romance, and I thought it was a lesbian manga for the first chapter because I
didn't realize
swore Sora was a woman. I would have bet money. I'd be like, no, that's clearly a chick. What are you talking about? It's not until they start banging at the end of the chapter. It's like, seems like that chick has a dick. Oh, I get it now.
That's not a chick, but there is a scene where a chick has a dick later.
But he's like staring out the window, looking at Sora or Aki, and he's like talking about how Sora or Aki is the perfect girl at school. Everyone thinks she's so great because she's perfect at grades and perfect at sports, and she's so attractive. But little do they know, she's completely worthless at home. She's such a layabout, she can't do anything, and that's the side I always like. And in my mind, I was like, this is a brilliant subversion, almost a commentary on teenage culture where we don't look beyond surface depths when we look at our classmates. They only see Aki as this perfect woman because they don't truly know her. They only look at the superficial elements. And I pull it back a little bit more. I was like, no, this manga's just dumb as fuck and this writing sucks.
So, I don't even remember how it happens, but Aki and Sora just start banging at one point.
I feel like there isn't really much. She like walks up and she's like, you love me, don't you? I do! Boom, boom, boom. It's not like there's a lot of foreplay to it. These two have no relationship that is not purely physical.
So, basically, anytime that Aki is the centerpiece of a story from then on, it's just, excuse plot for porn. There is actually a weird sense of progression from the other characters in this, which is insane. But with them, there's like stuff to actually talk about. If Aki shows up, though, it's just like, okay, they're gonna go somewhere and they're gonna have sex. That's literally it. So let's talk about the other parts of this series. First off, like I said, Sora's a complete bitch. He keeps on dressing up like a girl even though he doesn't want to. He looks 10. And for some reason, he's a chick magnet. He has sex with 3, 4,
I think like six?
7 named characters in this story, and then a bunch of nameless girls at an orgy, which we'll get to in just a minute. So, one of the other girls he ends up having sex with is his other sister, his twin sister, Nami. So
this is where the series lost me completely. This is where I was like, oh, this isn't fun porn anymore. This is horrifying.
So, Nami's main thing is the fact that she has a crush on her friend, Kana Sumiya. Kana is this glasses-wearing shy girl with big, huge knockers. She is specifically known as having the hugest tits of every girl in the series. And she has a crush on Sora. And honestly, this part of the story, I was like, in a completely different series, with a different author and with a different person for doing this, this could actually be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
because Nami has a crush on Kana, who has a crush on Sora. And Nami is like, it's because he's a guy, but, it's such a cruel twist of fate that, someone so similar to me and so close to me is the object of, my love interest affections instead of me.
Yeah, I love her, and Sora doesn't.
Right.
But she'll only have affection for him because that's who she's sexually attracted to.
And she gets to the point where it's like, I think it's just because he's a guy, and she's straight. And it's like, okay, yeah, that could be, you could really do something with that, dealing with that, weird feeling and
depression, gender identity, exactly. Like a lot of things you can do with that. Twin relationship.
At one point, she actually fantasized about what it would be like if she were a guy and she could end up with Kana.
Hard cut!
She doesn't talk about it's because Sora is a guy. She says it's because Sora has that. And that is exactly what you think that is. So she thinks about what it would be like if she cut off Sora's dick and had it instead.
And you're like, oh wow, this series has gone too far. Oh no. That is nothing. That was just thinking it.
She gets a pair of scissors and she pins Sora down. And she's like, can I have this? And this is like, still not going where you think it's gonna go.
She's like slowly fucking jerking him off. You're like, oh, this has gotten weird. Oh no!
She decides to rape him. And then while she's raping him, she fantasizes about her having Sora's dick and fucking Kana with it.
And it's like a moment where you're just, what am I reading? The entire time she's doing this, she's just fantasizing about being the one fucking, and at the end she's like, I still may cut your dick off. And Sora, the eternal bitch that he is just like, okay ma'am. Doesn't tell anybody about it. Doesn't warn anybody. He just goes on living with it.
So 5 chapters later, she just lies down next to Sora while he's trying to sleep.
Sora, who hasn't gotten a restraining order against her, or run away, or told somebody, he just like, no, let sleeping dogs rest.
So Nami's like, do you hate me for what I did? And Sora's like, no, I'm just kind of scared of you. And so Nami's
You're terrifying.
So Nami's like, well then do you want to have sex again? And they become fuck buddies.
I did not get to the second chapter originally. I just looked it up on the Wikipedia. And hold on, let me find it on Wikipedia because it made me laugh so hard. The way they describe it. It's, oh god, where is it? She proceeds to rape him, fantasizing during the whole act that she is making love to Kana. She obtains his silence through a death threat, and since then, Nami has repeatedly had sex with Sora, rekindling their relationship and becoming more intimate. You're like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, eventually she just asked if they could fuck again consensually. Sora was like, yeah, sounds like cool beans. That's what they did. And it never gets a follow-up. They were done with it then. They're like, we've gotten to the third act. He fucked her consensually. That's what they do now.
So somehow, the 6 different people that Sora has sex with throughout this story, unless they have threesome scenes together, they never find out about the other girl Sora's having sex with.
No one seems to care. He loves Aki, but he will not tell anybody that in the moment. He's not like, I can't do this. I have a girlfriend. I don't know what you call it. But every time he just goes along with it. And you're like, wow, like, that was like a weird anomaly within that story. It's like, no, because there's other weird shit in there. There's like a chapter that reveals their mom isn't their mom. Like, their mom actually died in a car accident when the twins were still very young. And their mom just had a twin sister who came in and was like, I'll take care of you. But the twins were so young, they were like, Mommy, are you all right? And Aki was just like, you have to lie and say you're our mom. And she just does. And that's it. That's like, oh, their aunt is pretending to be their mom. And it will kind of come up every now and then, but it's still really just a backdrop to them having sex at some point.
And keep in mind, Aki knew about this when Sora and Nami were apparently like 5 because of how small they are and how they're calling her mommy and stuff. And apparently Aki and Sora and Nami all go to the same school, which means they're in high school together. So Aki is older than them, but apparently not
too much older.
Twice as old, which you would think from looking at their respective character designs. So that means, because they can only be separated by 3 years tops, that means that Sora and Nami must be older than Aki was when she knew the truth. But they still haven't told them the truth yet. For some reason. And this comes up, where not Sora has a conversation with his aunt mom eventually. And he's like, do you remember one time there was an accident in the kitchen? And she's like, no, I don't remember that. That was so long ago. But the reason why Sora remembers is because, a kettle of boiling water burned her arm. And so she should have a scar on her arm. And Sora's like, why don't you have that scar?
He's like Columbo with the most meek Columbo out there. Like, can I bother you for one more thing, ma'am?
So, they are confronted with this. And rather than just come clean, they're just like, no, we must continue hiding the truth. So their aunt mom burns her arm.
What? Why? This isn't interesting. Why did you add this and then continue it?
They're mature enough to handle this, I think, by this point.
It's not that shocking. It wouldn't blow my mind. I'd be like, wow, I can't believe you didn't tell us. I mean, it changes almost literally nothing, but...
It would be, kind of tough, but, if you're 15 by that point, I think you'd be able to she should trust them with
it's
being
their
able to handle
family.
that.
It's not like I'm a stranger who looked identical to your mom who's just been taking care of you. It's like,
right.
Oh, I'm just an aunt you apparently didn't know of, or else you would have probably made this connection a lot sooner than this.
So, yeah.
Also,
any and all attempts at drama in this series don't work.
Also, their attempts at humor don't work either. Because there's a small joke at one point that I guess their mom is an idiot because she can't tell Sora and Nami apart even when they're naked. Which means she just doesn't have eyes.
And so she goes to Aki at one point and she's like, oh, Aki, you can tell the twins apart? And Aki's like, well, yeah, Sora has a pee-pee and Nami doesn't.
She's like, what kind of sorcerer child are you? How did you figure this out? And I'm like, you're a grown-ass woman. How did you not know this?
Just because you're not their real mom doesn't mean you've never had sex before.
Doesn't mean you don't know what genitals are. You don't know what the difference between men and women are.
So, moving away from the weird family matters in this series for a bit, because there are other things that come up in this story besides incest. So, the exhibitionist that Sora meets, who uses she interprets as a cross-dressing fetish to get him to go out with her and do weird stuff. The second time that they meet up, she's like, you want to pretend to be my boyfriend so we can go to this couples party? It's just so I can actually attend this couples party. And Sora's like, okay, I'll pretend to go out with you. So they go to this couples party. Sora's drink gets spiked, because alcoholics can pass around. And so, it's like, as soon as he wakes up, you sort of see where this is going. It's like, oh, one of the girls at the party is having sex with him. No, it's not one girl at the party. It's all the girls at the party.
It's like
it turns out the couples party was just a cover for an orgy with 30 people.
Well, it's not just an orgy. It's a cuckold orgy, because you're not allowed to have sex with your partner. You just get to have sex with someone else while you watch someone else have sex with your partner.
And
again and again.
And Sora did not know about this. So literally, there's a point where 3 of the girls, because of course Sora's got girls fighting over him. He's the sexiest man on the planet.
He's the sexiest man, question mark?
And they literally are holding him down so he can't struggle while they're pinning him down to have sex with him. He gets raped! So there are at least 2 times where Sora gets raped.
But it's okay, because he has fun by the end of it. He makes a connection with what's-her-name girl, and they hold hands while they're both getting fucked by other people. Because she loves it. Like, she's all over it. She loves getting plowed by, like, 8 guys. And Sora has the stamina of a stallion. Because he gets fucked, like, 9 times in half an hour.
Well, look, you know, when you're 12, you know, you finish really quickly, but you could go like 10 times in a row to make up for it. So, you know. So, yeah. So that happens.
There's so many just weird, like, because even the way, a more bizarre moment to me is the way that first chapter with them goes. Because essentially it's you know, she forces him to cross-dress and go around town, and then she's wearing, like, a trench coat with nothing underneath. And she just loves, like, the opportunities to get as close to being caught as possible without actually getting caught.
Right.
And then, you know, which is a very normal fetish. I've heard a lot of people with that. Then she takes him into a bathroom, and she's so excited because she rips open her coat, and she's like, I can't let other people see, but I want you to see. And then she starts masturbating in front of him, and she's like, I want you to watch me. And now you jerk off while you watch me masturbate. And at no point, Sora just does this. He just does it. He has no statement like, no, I'm in love with my sister, which probably would have just turned her on more, but no point does he say anything. They just start masturbating in front of each other, and you have to sit there like, what is happening? What is this world? It's this bizarre world.
So, by the way, going back to the matter of cuckold fetish, that's a recurring fetish for this series. It's incest, then cross-dressing, then harem, I guess, then cuckold. Because then Sora's childhood friend Miharu, who actually likes dressing up like a girl and does it all the time, so he's kind of like, you know, the cruel inverse of Sora, because he also has a girlfriend who happens to be Aki's classmate and rival. She is basically like the second most perfect girl in class, because she is also beautiful, but she's the second-ranked student, and Aki's the first-ranked student. And she's super beautiful, and somehow she and Miharu, who looks like he's 7, are a couple, and they're in love. And they don't have as fucked up a relationship as Aki and Sora, because they're not brother and sister. But Miharu has erectile dysfunction.
Just announces it. Like, the chapter begins, it's like, I have ED!
So the solution for this is, I want my girlfriend to be sad. So Sora, you are my childhood friend. I want you to plow my girlfriend, because she likes cross-dressing girly men, and you're the one I trust the most, so you'll have to do in my place.
That's you to a T. And Sora's like,
Okay.
It's hard being a hero. As he's taking off his pants and putting on a skirt.
And the funny thing is, in addition to the potentially good idea of Sora, this is actually responsible for my other I might have a good thing to say about this story sort of thing. Because they show up again in a later chapter, and that's literally the only one where it seemed to amuse me on purpose. Because they play this weird board game where some of the punishments are just embarrassing, and some of them are have sex with the girl who's present in your playing group. And of course,
why did I ever get to play that game as a child? Well, a teenager, legal teenager.
I have no idea how the hell you can purchase this board game, especially if all of you are apparently underage. Like, what black market do you guys like frequent that you managed to find this game and they didn't ask for some ID? And of course, Miharu keeps on getting like just the generally embarrassing ones, like, you know, go pee outside, or, you know, admit something embarrassing about yourself in public. And Sora keeps on having, you know, perform cunnilingus on the girl, spank the girl, fuck the girl. And Miharu just like has had to tie himself up and watch this, and it's like, oh man, by the mere chance of the roll of the dice, we've ended up in this situation that we were at on purpose in the last chapter we were all featured in.
Oopsie poopsie.
It's like, okay, this is a little bit funny. Even so, it's just shameless porn, and you are cross-dressing, and Sora looks 6, but at least you made attempts at humor that were sort of funny. Okay, that's the last compliment I have about this series.
I never thought I would find a series that made me say, like, oh man, the Lannisters have a perfectly healthy relationship. I guess I went through and was like, oh, they had subtext to the ancestral relationship. It was about more than just physical attraction to your sibling. There's depth to it. In this one, they have no relationship significance beyond let's bang. And at the end, it still tries to pull like, we can't do this. We're monsters. I can't let you go through this.
I mean, on a certain level, it's like, it's porn. So, the plot isn't excuse for the people to fuck. The roll of the dice determined that you would have sex with my girlfriend while you're also having a relationship with an exhibitionist and both your sisters and also another girl. It's the same logic as, well, our fancy, expensive car got stuck in the mud. Let's have lesbian sex while we're here.
Yeah, I mean, we're already here in these bikinis, so...
So it's like, if you say, like, this makes no sense, this is stupid, the characters aren't in any way likable or interesting, then the author will just say to you, look, do you want to get to the incest sex scenes or not? And if you say no, he'll say, well, then why are you reading this at all?
But if that was the only thing, if it was just the sex scenes, if it was just that, I wouldn't mind it. I would say, not for me. It was pretty funny, though. Some people might enjoy it. But it's the fact that it keeps trying to be dramatic, that it keeps trying to tell a tragic story in all this. Especially when you get to the end and they're like, oh, it's not just you, it's our parents were the same way. They were also brother and sister caught in a tragic romance.
Yeah, but that's actually, like, not something that comes up until, like, the last few chapters, because the main dramatic thing that's actually going on through the story is the relationship between Nami and Sora and Kana. Because it gets to the point eventually where Kana is just having sex with Sora. And Sora is like, I don't actually love her, but whatever, And so while this is going on, this is actually one of the reasons why Nami decides to actually start having sex with Sora, is because it's like, this is like the closest I can get to having sex with Kana, is to have sex with someone who's had sex with her. And eventually Kana finds out about this. And, because, like, she sees them kissing, and Sora just immediately like, yes, we have this kind of relationship and there's no room for you in it, so you should just leave. Because she's like, if I can't have it, I'm going to ruin it for Sora. And so it's like, okay, I kind of get that. But then, kind of like, I don't believe you. I don't actually believe you have that kind of relationship. So Nami basically arranges so that she'll stumble across them having sex. And then she's like, see, do you believe it now? Look, we're having sex. And so instead of kind of being like, you guys are gross, I'm gonna leave, she's like, I can make him feel better than you can. And they have a competitive threesome. It's just like, what the fuck is up with it? You just wanted to have them have a threesome. You didn't have to actually pretend this had any dramatic weight to it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not that it's like shameless, silly pornography. I don't care about that. It's that it keeps trying to be something serious. It keeps trying to... If it took itself 100% seriously, I'd laugh at it. Just like that pig fucking episode of Black Mirror. But it's the fact that it's soon to be like, no, there's an ongoing tragic story here, and their mother's actually lying to them, and their father isn't around, but is a sinister presence in their life in his absence, and all these things, and Nami can't make peace with how, tragic the world was in determining that she was born the girl and thus can't be the one that Kana has affections for. Clearly that doesn't matter, they'll have three ways later on anyway. So why don't you just go on living life, bringing your brother along to all these sexy three ways you'll have with your girlfriend?
And after Sora has about 3 or 4 threesomes with them, which he totally doesn't enjoy doing, he eventually is like, I think you guys are actually in love with each other. And he observes, Kana, I think that you actually fell in love with me just because I look like Nami. But I'm a guy, so, whatever. And he realizes that Sora is in love with, Sora realizes that Nami is in love with Kana, and eventually they're just like, oh. And all of that rape and, like, potentially friendship ending will land you in jail activity that they were getting up to. Nah, it's just like, nope. Sora and Kana end up happy together. So that's taken care of with no... It's not even a big deal. Literally, Sora just, like, they finish having sex one time and is like, I think you guys are actually in love with each other. They're like, oh. And then all the rest of it is resolved off page. And then at the very end of the series, they're, I guess, dating now. So then we've got to get back to the main couple, which has, again, done nothing but have sex throughout this entire manga. That's literally all that they've done. Their dad shows up. Apparently, he's just neglectful and doesn't show up in their life very much. It's never explained why. Well, no, it is explained why, but the reason why... whatever, we'll get to it. So, he's like, I want Aki to go to this prestigious school so that she'll have a good education, and I'm going to take her away from this family so that she can go and do that. And Aki's like, I don't want to leave. And so, he walks out of the room, or whatever. He goes outside.
And it's been 3 minutes, and Sora and Aki are in the same room, so obviously they decided to start fucking.
He comes back, and he catches them in the act. And, literally, this is what happens. He's like, what are you guys doing? Your brother and sister, you can't do this. I'm taking Aki with me, I'm taking her away from this, and she's going to go to that school. Using that information he has them to blackmail them, instead of actually, separating them because this is fucked up. And Sora says, what's it matter that we're brother and sister? I'm in love with her. What's so wrong about that? And their dad slaps him across the face and says everything.
And you're like, good, the dad gets it. The one guy in this who gets it. Until...
And it's like the hero that we deserve, but he's like, no, he's the villain. What are you talking about? He's the only one who...
They do. They treat him like he's the monster. Like, how could you do this? And I'm like, no, this dude is 100% right. This is really wrong, and you guys need to be separated.
So, Aki's taken away. Sora mopes for the next chapter until Satsuki, the exhibitionist girl, comes across him and decides to cheer him up by fucking him, because of course. And
because this is the only porn the author can still draw at that point.
So she gives them the confidence to go and pursue Aki and track her across the country and go to the school that she's been sent to attend. It's an all-girls school, so they're like, ooh, a boy, and they try to rape him again. But he finds Aki, and she's like, I'm going to stay here. And he's like, I don't care if our dad wants to stay apart. And she's like, no, look, come with me. And she takes him to the hospital where their dad is. He's deathly ill with plot disease.
He just spontaneously got to.
Which, apparently he was well enough to travel across the country and grab Aki. Now he's completely bedridden. I don't know exactly what disease he had. Maybe that's the reason why he was, neglectful and not with them. Maybe not. I don't know. It turns out later on, because he's like, you're not, Sora's like, you're not our real dad. You haven't been there for us. You don't know anything about us. And Aki's like, he had sex with her. He's our uncle and also our father.
That's the generational thing.
So it's just like, so he really does actually understand it, better than most people could. And so it's like, okay, so Sora has fucked both of his sisters. Their dad fucked at least one of their sisters, and the relationship went on long enough for them to have
children.
Two births. It doesn't seem to be... There's no real reason why this is revealed. Because, even though it provides some context for his understanding of the relationship, it's just like, okay, so what? And it's like, so is this the reason they're fucked up? Is because they're incest kids?
They're inbred?
Is that why?
No, I mean, it only exists to give, a dramatic reason as to why Sora and Aki can't be together. Because they're like, look, our dad went through it, and there were rumors all about town about how he and his sister were in a relationship, and it destroyed them, and he had to make the decision to stay away from her. Clearly not for long, because after one child born out of incest, he came back and did it again. But the notion is that's why he's not there anymore, because he didn't want his family and everyone to be subjected to the rumors anymore. And Aki and Sora are now involved with it, and he's like, no. But it's still kind of treated like he's wrong. Like, he's the asshole.
Because he's getting in the way of true love, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of it. The story just kind of...
It stops.
Ends. It just ends.
Yeah.
Because the author's like, well, I thought I would have, 30 more chapters of sex scenes that I could put in, but the law changed, so I can't do that anymore. So that's it. There's like a where are they now kind of final chapter where you catch up with, Miharu and Satsuki and...
all your favorite characters.
And this one art club president who was disgusted by men until Satsuki got Sora to have sex with her so she would get over her fear of male, sex parts. And now she's apparently got an exhibitionist fetish too. And that's, it's implied that Aki and Sora are going to get back together. And that's it. Like, they don't even go out on a sex scene because they can't. So it's just like, well, this is like nothing. Like, it's such a wet fart of a finish, too. This manga is terrible.
It is. And it's only terrible because it tried to be something more than what it should have just been from the very beginning. It should have just been porn. If it were just porn, I wouldn't care. It's that it kept trying to be something more, and then it couldn't be porn anymore, so then it had to go full force into being dramatic, and it could not at all.
It was awful. It's so terrible. I'm actually gonna hang on. Let me see if I can look up this guy.
That's a her, isn't it?
Is it a girl?
I believe it's a woman who wrote the series. And
Masahiro Itosugi. Masahiro sounds like a guy's name.
I looked up images, and the only one that came up was a woman. So
I don't know. You can keep on talking about all of this.
Okay. Well, I'll say this: if your kink is incest, and you need new material to jerk off to, or Pornhub is no longer working for you, Aki Sora might be a suitable replacement for you. If nothing else, if you want to laugh and you're not in any place of public decency that will judge you if they see this over your shoulder, you could read the first few chapters and laugh. It's silly, stupid fan service for a while in pornography, but then it gets dumb, and that's why I'm like, look, either you're willingly torturing yourself or just stop, because it does not get better. For about like 5 chapters, it's kind of funny, and then for the rest of it, you're like, oof, this is pretty brutal. I did not get through the entire series. I got to the chapter where you got introduced to the ED kid, and I was like, we've literally just met these characters, and he's going to fuck them. I don't even know who these characters are anymore. I can't do this anymore.
I did finish this series.
I did catch a couple chapters towards the end.
When I came across the two the dramatic conclusion. And I was like, Chris, you've got to fucking see this. You've got to read this. You have to know what happened at the end. But I went through all the way through this series. It's not insanely long because I think it was monthly, but it's 30 chapters, and every single one features a sex scene that I mostly just was like, oh, they're having sex. This will get me through half the chapter. Just scrolled halfway down. No, nothing important happened. Half of the chapters up until like the final 5 are Aki and Sora banging, so it's just like, oh, I don't even need to know what the fuck happened in this one. It's just an excuse for them to have sex. Literally nothing else will happen. And I just skipped it. So if you treat it that way, but on the other hand, that's the main reason to read it. So, and I did get all the way through this. I'm not sure I actually read it though. I mean, light reflected off of the pages of this manga. They went through my pupil, were flipped upside down by the lenses in my eyes, reflected off of the retina, and then my brain got what seemed to be right side up images. So I think that I did actually process the images that went into my brain properly. But it doesn't seem real still. I think part of my nervous system disconnected in order to protect my brain from this stupid piece of shit manga. And as much as I laughed about this during this conversation, most of my experience reading this was just like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck is this? What's going on? Because I have never been so confused and befuddled that this actually exists. I could not believe that this actually was published in a widely released magazine that was not wrapped up in plastic cover and had a giant NC-17 sticker on it, or R-18, whatever they do in Japan. Apparently, the magazine that this was published in does a lot of these types of series. Not, incestuous, but,
Porno.
really porn. But even so, like I said at the start of this, even by the standards of porn, you can do so much better. There is so much better shit out there than this. So, it has long been our, motto for ecchi series, for borderline adult series, to just go and read porn. Go and read better porn than this.
It's House WMR's words. Go read better porn. It's our house sigil. It's a cat big bar with a Playboy rolled up under its arm going into the bathroom.
Oh, God. So yeah, that is my final recommendation, Aki Sora. You can do better. You can always do better.
Yes.
So, with that
God, I hope there's a manga out there about cars that get stuck out in the wilderness and hot lesbians in bikinis have to make out in response. And we can make that our next recommendation.
someone in Emperor Day in the chat room is bringing up Nana Takaru. That is an example of a borderline porn series. It's not, as borderline as this one, done right. Because Nana and Kaoru are actual characters.
Yeah, they have an actual emotional relationship outside of just being the bondage physical part of it.
I mean, that series is sold on the premise of it is bondage fetish. And there's a lot of girls tied up in, in outfits that, show off their ass or their cleavage or whatever. There are parts where it's just like, okay, she peed on the floor and stuff. But it's porn with good plot, basically.
With emotion and intentions behind it.
This has, negative plot. It has an attempted... It is worse than having no plot because it has, like you said, an attempted plot that it horribly botches, and it makes it so much worse than it really should have been. So, yeah. Maybe that's the final recommendation instead. Go read Nana Takaru.
They're like, I don't like incest. I don't like bondage. I like incest, damn it! You're mixing up your kinks.
Oh God, let's get out of this. Let's.
I almost kind of want to talk more about that as opposed to this week's jump.
This week's jump didn't. It's got a kind of not.
It's not a bad week, but there's not a whole lot of notable things this week. Unfortunately,
I mean, we're gonna have a pretty good discussion on Bleach, I think. But all right, recap portion of Weekly Manga Recap. Let us start off with actually probably one of the better chapters this week, Black Clover. Page 47, Light Magic versus Dark Magic. Yeah, so Yami showed up at the end of the last chapter to square off against Lisht, whose name we're never going to be able to pronounce, adequately.
Lisht.
Noelle is not there, despite the fact that she was the one who told Yami and company about all of this. But they're like, yeah, she informed the Magic Knights about this, and the Black Bulls are the closest one, and that's why we're here. And Yami literally says, nobody else at the base looked like they would be actually useful, so I just came myself. I'll kill them later. Okay, then.
Yeah.
The only one who did come along was their spatial magic user.
Finral.
Because Finral kind of was necessary to actually...
I literally had to come.
And he's like, why am I here? This sucks. Oh God, that guy looks scary, and so on and so forth. And he literally thinks to himself, I want to go home. It's like wetting his pants or some shit. There's a cool little moment where Gauch, he's bleeding and knocked out. Well, not knocked out, but prone on the ground, and he shouts out to Sister Teresa. He says, "Don't die, because if you die, Marie's going to be sad, and I won't feel so great myself." Like, aw, he does sort of care.
It's a dorky line, but he's a little bit of a dork, so I guess it's okay.
Finral agrees to take all of the kids and the nun and Gauch away, but Asta's like, "But let me stay here. I can still fight." And while privately thinking to himself, "Also, I'll get to see Captain Yami in combat, like I'm gonna leave." It's like, I hope you die from this, Asta. Stupid piece of shit. So Yami starts fighting Leash, which begins with him like slashing his sword through the air, and it leaves like a trail of darkness behind it, so it acts as a shield. And he uses that to deflect a bunch of the light arrows that Leash has. And this makes Asta's eyes go shiny a whole bunch. Because, of course, it does.
He's super excited about it.
Leash then tries to do his "I appear behind you because I'm so fast" thing, but then when he turns around to attack Yami, Yami just, like, swings his sword in this big old wide horizontal slash so it still blocks his attack, which is pretty cool. He's like, "No, I can deflect your attack without even looking." So Leash takes a brief, prompt from Yami, which is, "Who the hell are you?" To tell Yami a fable. His backstory, essentially. Which is, there were people in a village that had much strong magic. They could change the weather. They could even rival the gods with their power. But the humans grew to fear their strength that they envied, and so they tricked them, massacred them, and stole their power. And Yami's just like, "Okay, well, I've got a story too. Once upon a time, there was a boy. His folks were fishermen, and he'd been out fishing since he was little. But then he got shipwrecked and washed ashore in a weird country. His race and culture were different, so he met with some serious nastiness there. But he beat everyone up and became the boss of a group. The end." That is an awesome origin story.
I just like how he's like exhaling smoke while he does it too. Like, "Oh, did you like my fable?"
How was that? That was a pretty good story, huh? Wasn't it? Yeah. Evil spatial magic user whose name I keep forgetting is like, "How dare you mock Master Leash?" And Yami is like, "You shut up! Your face is scary."
Why are there lines on your face? You're ugly.
That's a really good question. So yeah, they keep on fighting. Yami asks Leash if he was the one who defeated Fuego Leon, and Leash is like, "Yes." And so Yami's like, "Well, you would never be able to take down the King of the Hard Noses with stuff like this." Basically, like, you took him by surprise, and there was a trap, and so on and so forth. So now that he's fighting him directly, he's like, "I bet I can take him on." And he launches a blade of one of those, like, blasts kind of things. He basically launches Getsuga Tensho at Leash. Slashes his sword, and then a big old arc of darkness goes flying through the air, and it actually hurts Leash. It cuts his cheek. Oh. And Yami says, "You wouldn't have been able to win if you hadn't played dirty, so this time you have to bring it right to my face. I'll show you what sort of magic power a Magic Knight captain's got." And Yami's like, "So, hey, Asta, were you watching that? Good, now you try doing it."
Now, I don't know, is that supposed to be a serious thing? Like, he's like, "No, now you can hurt him? Like, if you follow my..." I don't know if it's a joke, like, "You do it. Like, do that awesome thing I just did," or if he's, like, legitimately like, "No, you have it within you to also hurt Leash."
Well, I mean, either way, Asta, reacts by going, "Like I could!"
Well, he reacts like everything
it's
like an idiot.
Weird note to end the chapter on. On this moment of sudden wackiness after the big dramatic confrontation, and Yami having a badass, line to deliver, and it's just kind of a weird final note, because
also,
I don't know, Yami's very back and forth in this chapter a lot. He's joking around a lot. Well, he's not joking around, but he's being funny a lot, and he's also being very serious and dramatic.
I wonder, because Asta technically already can do that. He has one sword that can shoot like a cutting magic wave, essentially.
Right. He did that in order to take down the Mud Golem guy.
Yeah. So I don't know what that... maybe next chapter probably clears it up a little bit. This is a good chapter. It's fine. I'm not as excited about it as the last one, if only because when a villain gets their big introduction, I get more excited about it. And don't get me wrong, Yami's awesome. Like, he's funny in this chapter, he looks cool, it's kind of cool to see him fight back and forth. It's just harder for me to get excited about a hero character, looks super badass, awesome introduction as it is than a villain. And when it comes back to back with it. So it's a good chapter, don't get me wrong. I just wasn't as crazy on it as last week's.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah. All right, let's move on to Bleach.
The visible answer, Nick.
Okay. God, I can't believe this. Like, honestly. Bleach 660. The visible answer. Chad and Orihime catch up to where Ichigo has suddenly come across Ishida because, Haschwald knocked her through a wall. And so Haschwald is like, Ryu Ishida, fate is lending you a hand to prove yourself. So if you claim you're not a traitor, kill them right here, right now. How are you going to respond? And Ishida fires some arrows at Ichigo. They fight briefly, and Ichigo's like, what are you doing? Why are you even following that guy's orders? Blah, 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 blah. I turned traitor on you. What part of this don't you understand? Stuff happens. It looks like Ichigo is going to fall. Chad catches him.
It's like the only cool moment in this chapter where like Ichigo kind of gets like knocked away and like Chad makes the big save and then Orihime saves him. Like, they're like working like a team.
Mm-hmm. And so they fall through this pit to like the next level, like a sort of subterranean level of Vervolt. And then Ishida is there. He approaches them. And Ichigo is like, why have you taken the Quincy's side and why are you fighting us? And Ishida's like, well, what are you going to do about it? And Ichigo says, if your reasons make sense, I'll fight you and smack you till you come to your senses. But what if they don't make sense? I'm still gonna smack you! And she is like, so you're just gonna hit me either way. So.
I love the idea that of all the characters in Bleach, Ishida's like the one character who's like, people don't talk this way. What the fuck are you doing?
He literally says, what's the matter with you?
It's such a stupid phrase. Like, if your reasons make sense, then I'll smack you and get you out of it. And what if they don't make sense? Then I'll smack you and knock you out of it. Like, then why did you pose it as though one situation was going to end differently than the other?
So, Ishida tosses this sun key towards Ichigo. And he says, this is issued to every member of the Sternritter. Holding it up to metal sheets called sun gates allows you to travel between other sun gates located across Varvelt. There are stairs that lead down to my left, so go down 5 levels and you'll find a sun gate that was set up to invade the living world. You should use it to go back there. I'm staying here and taking this place down. Amazingly, the guy whom we had no reason to believe had actually turned traitor to the group did not actually turn traitor to the group. The guy who was given no chances to prove his loyalty to the Quincy's did not have any loyalty to the Quincy's. Yay! Good thing we have... Man, how does it feel, Chris? You can let out that breath you've been holding for the last 2.5 years regarding Ishida's allegiance. Oh man, it's so good to know that he's not really evil.
It's just so frustrating that you'd spend this much time with it, and for what we find out is I'm not a big, I don't know every logical piece of Bleach, but from what I'm grasping, his plan's fucking stupid. Because he's like, I'm going to stay here and destroy the Serete and, or the Soul King's Palace and take out everyone in here. And I'm like, alright, you're not creating a black hole. You're just going to destroy, I guess, everything around them and they'll fall or the blast will kill them. Maybe you didn't do any reconnaissance on your group. Out of the 6 people of the Sternritter that were left, I think 5 of them would survive this plan of yours because they have bullshit regeneration abilities. Pernita's just recovers and regenerates. Lilibaro is an energy life form that can only be killed by something that hurts a god. Gerard...
Well, he doesn't know that, but he's no longer on Varveld, so that...
Well, I'm just saying his plan was to take out everyone in here. And 2 of those guys already, we know, wouldn't have been taken out even if they weren't defeated already. Gerard is just a miracle. You can't...
He's just gonna get bigger.
Askanakdavar could technically be killed by it. If it actually kills him, he's fine. If not, though, you've made him immune from falling death ever. Like, he can never die from that. And the other two are just almighty.
Gods.
Like, I have to assume, like, dropping a building on them or having them fall from the sky is not going to kill them.
Right.
So it's just like, this is the plan? Like, what is this? It seems like so much work for nothing.
So yeah, Ishida's like, I spread these chips everywhere, but they were made from the Sanrei Shuto that was given to me by my teacher, so only my Reishi can activate them. And Ichigo is telling him, like, why don't we just work together and defeat Yubak? And Ishida never answers that. He just says, like, only my spirit pressure can activate the collapsed chips. And there is no other way. You should go. Before Hashwat realizes what I'm doing. And Hashwat's like, steps out of his is like, what the fuck do you mean?
I didn't go anywhere.
I told you, I can see the future.
He's like, also, I didn't leave. Who did you think you were shouting this to? Like, Hashwat's in China. He can't hear us right now. Or he might be in the next room. Either way, he can't know I'm a traitor pretending to betray this third ritter. It's so bad.
Literally, Ishida was like, well, this guy has all the powers of Yubak, who essentially is God now. But if we just take this elevator down one floor, there's no way he can follow us.
His power is the Almighty, not the Almighty down one floor. We're good. We can hang out down here. Talk about how we're all going to betray him and stuff.
So I have to repeat my questions from last time. 1. Why does Yubak trust Ishida? 2. If he doesn't trust Ishida, why did he give him this power? 3. If he trusts him with this power because he knew what Ishida was going to actually do, because he can see the future and he knows it doesn't matter, why didn't he tell Hashwat about this?
Well, here's the thing. There was a chapter where Yubak gave him like a cup that had some of his blood and was like, you are going to become my next successor. You are going to become the next A. I grant my shrift to you. So maybe he knew all this was going to happen, but he's like, if I give him this, I can control Uryu. There's something I can activate and take over him.
Which, if Hashwat has all of the same powers of Yubak, why doesn't he realize and understand the same things that Yubak does with his future vision powers?
Maybe he's playing into it? I don't know.
Maybe Yubak's like, no, I must lose.
Complete foresight is an awful ability to give any character in a manga, because it really asks a lot of questions you can't answer. But the thing that annoys me, and I assume that I have to hope that's what's happening, that he's going to take over Uryu and basically control him and enforce it. Because I'm like, if we spent the last 2+ years slowly teasing that Ichigo and Uryu were going to have a fight and there was going to be some big climactic showdown between them, and we're just not going to do it because turns out Uryu was a good guy all along, and there wasn't even a dramatic reveal to it. It was just kind of like they were in a room for more than 3 minutes with each other, then it's just going to be a huge letdown. Like, look, I don't really even care about this plot, but I feel like at some point there should be a conflict between Uryu and Ichigo, just based on the fact that Uryu is a Quincy and his kind has been slowly eradicated by the Soul Reapers over centuries. Like, it should just happen. But for all this buildup, it just feels like a nothing climax. Like, no, they're just gonna, that's not what he's doing. They're not enemies. And he just decided that thing, like, where I don't trust my friends for dramatic reasons, and I won't tell them that I'm secretly not being evil. It's like, it's the kind of shit you have to put up, like, once a season on Arrow, and then I just have to do it with Uryu here.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, alright, let's move on.
Fairy Tales. Chapter 471, Until the Battle is Done. And there's a cover page with everyone eating, and for some reason, Wendy is eating the most phallic object at the table. I don't know what
I noticed that too.
I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I think it's a sausage. I've never seen anyone eat a sausage like it's a penis before.
It's like a corn dog without the batter. It's weird.
Yeah. Anyways, we cut back to where we were last week, where Akalogia had just destroyed God Serena, and we see the assassin guy's like, oh, I'll fight him, and our main guy's like, no, you're not going to fight him. He's too strong, but the Emperor can beat him once we get Fairy Heart, so let's go get it. And then we kind of jump around to a bunch of different areas. There's a scene in the hospital I won't really comment much on because not a whole lot happens about it. They kind of just discuss small little things. But it turns out that Urza, Luxus, Wendy, and Gray have all headed south to help out in the army thing. There's kind of just conversations between them. Luvia brought a 2-person sleeping bag for her and Gray. Gray's like, it looks too hot in there. But the more important thing is that Luxus is out in the middle of the woods and he's clutching his chest and he's breathing. He's just like, and Gray shows up and is like, when did this start? And of course Luxus doesn't want to talk about it. He's like, nothing. It's nothing to do with you. And he's like, yeah, we're guildmates in the middle of a war. Kind of has a little something to do with me. Does it have anything to do with a year ago when you took in all those anti-magic particles? Which I don't remember, but I'm sure happened, but I'm trying to remember what instance actually happened that he took those in. Maybe it was when he fought...
Was it during the face thing?
I don't think so. I mean, I know he had a fight in that against Tempest. That, that was, with the, what do you call them? They were just called demons, I guess. They had, the anti-magic or whatever. There was a big explosion. That guy did it. And I don't think he came back since then, so it must have been from that. Anyway, he's just like, don't say a word. It just happens every now and again. And don't worry, because until this battle is done, I'm going to protect this guild, even if it kills me. Which I think might have been a cooler moment if it didn't have to cut to Urza and Luvia sleeping in a sleeping bag together, and Urza's just, fondling her as Luvia's, terrified. She's like, this isn't how tonight was supposed to go.
It was supposed to be Gray fondling me.
But Gray's like, nah, that's cool. And then they make a joke about all his clothes disappeared somehow.
I do like how he's like, wait a minute, when did I get naked?
It's funny because you can see in the previous panel, the last moment Gray spoke, he still had his clothes on. So literally in the span of a sentence, somehow his clothes disappeared. But then we cut away to Gajeel, is his name, up on a cliff, and he's kind of looking forward to the next day, and Levy's there, and she's like, kind of get the feeling I'm not going to be around much longer. I might never see the guild again, because, we're facing the strongest group on the planet, and I kind of aren't that strong. I'm not that good, so I'm kind of feeling bad. So Luxus slams a whole bunch of, or rather Gajeel slams a whole bunch of big metal spears in. He's like, you're under arrest. The charge, putting yourself down. And I'm like, that's cheesy and lame, but at the same time, that's what people in romances say, so I'm okay with this. It reminds me of Charlie back in Lost when he's like, oh, there's peanut butter in this jar. It's just imaginary peanut butter. I'm like, oh, this is the cheesiest thing in the world, but I love it. You go, Charlie. You bang that pregnant chick. They just basically...
Your lines don't have to all be good once you're securely in a relationship.
Yeah, so. then any bullshit you come out sounds somewhat charming. Mm-hmm. They basically just have a little moment there.
I like whenever Gajeel and Levi have moments because this is, I think we've noted before that out of all the current Shonen Battle series, Fairy Tail seems to enjoy its teasing of ships the most. So the fact that it's just they're kind of into each other and is actually fully acknowledging that in terms of the way they actually interact with each other is something that I appreciate about Gajeel and Levi.
And they're the only romantic pairing in the group that actually seems genuine. Mm-hmm. I still don't really see Luvia and Gray. It's just what the two of them are pushed towards. And I certainly don't see anything with Urza and whatever Jalal, whatever his stupid name is. But this is one I'm like, these two actually seem fun together. So, we cut down to Southern Fiore where the battle is continuing. It's the next day. Kaguya has all of her clothes back on, but that's when I swear to God, I need to tattoo it to my forehead. Di Maria is her name. Oh. Di Maria is there, and she's like, maybe I'll find someone else today. And we then cut to Sharia, who some of you might know was one of the Sky Sisters. The 16-year-old girls who Wendy was a part of. They were like a model diva group for a little bit. Idols, basically. She goes up against Di Maria. So you can assume what happens here. She disintegrates all of her clothing.
Well, no. She only disintegrates all of her...
Her top. Completely removes it, though. And she's like, oh, I like your face of yours. but you're a healer, so I actually have to kill you. And I'm like, oh, good. Strategy finally played into this. Good MMO logic. Kill the healer first. Which is super sad. And also it's weird because you could... Now, I guess it's her just saying. I thought you maybe saw people commenting on it, but it is a little weird that her clothes are being torn off. But then what's really weird is that Wendy shows up.
And it's like, oh no!
And she was like, oh, thank goodness you're here. And she stops covering up her breasts to do, like, the anime, like, we can do it thing. And, like, the text bubbles cover up anything essential. But I'm like, what a weird moment that I'm like, I don't want anyone to see my shame. Oh, cool, Wendy's here. But that's not all, because of course Kaguya is here and Urza shows up as well. So it seems like all four of the female characters who could have been here are squaring off against the character who seems to strategize tearing off their clothes. Fair enough.
That'll be fine.
Then we cut away to...
She has to fight Urza, you realize that. So it's just like every time that her clothes are given up, she'll just be like, new one.
We then cut away to somewhere, I guess, off in the city, where Wall is looking out over the city. He's like, you came to us? Fairy tale? And then Luxus shows up, and I don't actually know what happens. I think he punches him in the back of the head. Or something.
I think he does like this.
There's no movement in the panel, so it's... Or even like a suggestion of movement, it doesn't seem. I think maybe he channels electricity into the back of him? I don't know. Anyway, he hurts him. He hurts Wall. And he's like, so you're the one that did a number on Freed, Ever, and Big Slow. Who are they? And he punches him, and he's like, my friends, that's who! And that's where the chapter ends. So next week, presumably, will be, based off the chapter title, Lexus versus Wall. Which should be cool. I like both of those characters, but this chapter was not particularly memorable. It could have been a cool chapter. I like it as like a way to kind of develop relationships a little bit more in the moment. And there were cool bits in there. It's just Fairy Tail had to be Fairy Tail at certain points and just be like stupid or have a lot of weird fan service and things like that. But I'm like, all right, I'm losing it a little bit here. But I'm excited for next week nonetheless. So to that degree, I guess it's a okay chapter.
I don't really have very strong feelings one way or the other about it. So. Let's go on to Food Wars, Chapter 152, Reconnaissance. Ishiki tells everyone in the Polar Star dorm that, yes, he has been kicked off the council. But he's like, oh, I it's not finalized yet, so I'm going to, make the most of, the chance that I have while I'm still on the council in order to get a few things accomplished. Which is essentially he's setting rules in place in order to basically make the mop-up operation that that Central is launching. He's going to make it fair. He's going to even the playing field a little bit. And we get a lot of talking, a lot of text, and a lot of planning that goes on in this chapter. It's a very unexciting chapter of Food Wars that is literally just... We've got to lay the grounds for what's going on in the next several chapters. As Central is doing this, we're going to get presumably a bunch of focus on a bunch of the Council of 10 members that we haven't gotten to see do anything before, and we have to establish where our important main characters are while we're doing this.
Basically, it's just Ishiki, before he left, put in the rules to make sure that they have to accept challenges from the food clubs, they have to have impartial judges, they have to agree on what the, theme's going to be beforehand, and they also note that the skewer guy who lost before gets another shot at it because they deem that match was unfair. And then they're like, hey, some of the matches are going on now. We'll have to split into groups because there's 4 going on simultaneously. 3 of the groups you don't give a fuck about. And then Aldini, Soma, and Todoroki are going to go to the other one.
Tadokoro.
Todoroki is fire nice guy.
It'd be kind of funny if Todoroki showed up.
He's like, oh, can I make food? Oh, I burned it again. Shit.
Yeah, because it's like Bunhead girl whose name I forget, Aldini's younger brother, and Fumio in one group. Smoking food guy, long-haired girl, and glasses guy from Polar Store. Hisako and least important Polar Star dorm.
I don't even think those two have themes. I think they're just background characters.
And then all three most important characters together. And we get a bit of focus on the girl with the doll, her stuffed cat's name is Butchie, apparently. And it looks like its facial expressions change, apparently. So, yeah, that's
the chapter. It's not bad. It's a chapter that needed to happen to get things forward, but in the moment, you're like, okay.
Whatever.
Fair enough.
I'll enjoy the next week's better, probably.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. This is probably that's probably like our shortest Food Wars recap ever, because it's just like, whatever. Yeah.
We had to make up for the fact we talked about 30 or 45 minutes on a porn today.
My Hero Academia, which has a fucking badass color 2-page spread to open things up.
It is an awesome spread, which...
It is so cool looking.
I don't know some of these characters, though. Because a lot of them are the group that are attacking now, and then, Shigaraki? No, that's not his name, is it? What's the hand guy? Shigaraki?
Tamura is his other name.
But we know that there are 8 people that attack the school, and there's way more than that on this page.
Well, one of them, I think, is... Some of them, I think, are the monsters.
Well, I don't like the 3 guys up at the top, like the guy with the scarf, the guy with like the multiple hands and like the Sentai uniform, and the guy with the top hat. I don't recognize at all.
Right, it's the guy with the gas mask, the girl, the scarred guy, then muscle dude at the bottom, bandaged lizard guy, big lipped guy, and BDSM guy.
Yeah,
that's 7. I don't remember which one. I think that one of the. I think the guy with the weird armored neck is the 8th one. I'm not sure.
Might be, yeah.
But yeah, that guy with the top hat and the overcoat with the mask looks really cool, though. I wonder what his deal is. But yeah, it's cool to see a bunch of the students in full color form, doing badass poses and stuff. It reminds me a lot of X-Men. When they would have right, yeah. Well, and then even outside of that, there would be a bunch of times where just like, let's just have the X-Men like the Brotherhood, squaring off and stuff. It's a very, very classic comic book kind of situation.
It's even a manga thing too. It happens a lot. Like there were 2 separate covers of One Piece during the Alabasta arc. One cover had all of the Straw Hat staring, and the other cover had all of all the Baroque work staring. And if you put them next to each other, they were like squaring off. It was awesome.
But yeah, anyway, getting back actually into the action, this is chapter 79 or
76. My
Hero Academia. Last time, Deku unleashed 100% of One for All in order to fight Muscle Dude, and so the blast resulting from their clash actually nearly knocks Code off the side of the mountain, and because Deku's arms are now broken, he catches him with his teeth by the scruff of his shirt. And he's like, okay, we have to get out of here. And Muscle Guy is just like, I'm fine.
That almost hurt. You're like, oh, shit. Aw, crab apples.
Yeah, like, it seems as though he, like, cushioned a lot of the impact by just, summoning a whole bunch of enlarged muscles from his back and using them as, like, a cocoon to protect himself. And so Deku's like, oh god, no! Because he unleashed 100% of his power. He can't hurt him. What's he gonna do? And the guy reaches into his pocket and he's like, hey, remember how I said we were just playing before? Well, I really meant it. But playtime's over now. I'm using my serious eye. And he sticks in this new artificial eye, which apparently gives him greater strength. It's not really explained.
I didn't quite get that, but he clearly has different eyes on his pants leg for some reason. Or I guess those are dropping out of his pants pocket. I'm not sure. I guess he has different eyes for different occasions, but maybe he doesn't actually do anything to his fighting style. He just has cooler eyes that he likes to use.
He might have just been holding back. Who knows? It would be kind of cool if he had the thing where it's like, oh, you change the eye out and you get different, different things happen to your quirk and stuff. But anyhow, yeah, he basically turns into the Hulk essentially. He's just this giant behemoth with muscles everywhere. You see some of the muscles like coiling around his head as his like shoulders are dwarfing it and stuff. And he starts, chasing Deku around the mountain while Deku has to have Kota cling onto his back while he's using his cloak in order to jump away and stuff. But he's like, I can't actually get away from the guy. He's faster than I am. So he's like, okay, there's only one thing I can do. I have to protect Kota. So I'm just going to, all right, yeah, Kota, stay behind me a few paces. And if he gets me, then you have to run as fast as you can back to camp. So he's basically just like, I'm going to, make my last stand and protect this kid. And Kota's like, you can't do this because both your arms are broken. And Deku's like, no, it's okay. And he immediately, uses 100% of One for All again, knocks Muscle Guy with a Detroit Smash, and the guy is like, that was even weaker than before. And he starts to just overwhelm Deku and crush him with his strength. And Deku's like, I'm not going to give up. You have to run, Kota. He just starts trying to push back against the guy while demanding that Kota run. And eventually, when it looks like Deku's finally going to be crushed, he's thinking to himself, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. And he's calling out for All Might in his mind while the guy's like, I'm going to crush you. And Kota unleashes his water powers, which we knew about but didn't really see before, and blasts Muscle Dude with a blast of water. And the guy's like, hey, you wait your turn, and I'll kill you when I'm good and ready.
Very good villain move to have him be like, hey, come on, there's a list to killing people over here.
And so Deku, while literally bending over backwards, like he should have no leverage at this point, shouts out that he's not going to let him kill Kota, and he unleashes One for All, 1,000,000%. Whatever the fuck that means. And then he just overpowers the guy with a Delaware Detroit Smash, plows him, throws him into the side of the mountain. The guy's eye gets knocked out from the force of the impact, and Deku has won. While he thinks to himself that Kota's mom and dad, they went before their time and left you behind, but it's thanks to them that lives were saved. And so Kota's thinking, why did you do this? You don't even really know who I am. And but basically, Deku like shouts out triumphantly, but Kota is just thinking to himself, this guy's my hero, sort of. So very big chapter, because it's a huge stepping forward point for Deku. I'm not entirely on board with it, I don't think.
Here's the thing. I've heard some people, and I've seen in the chat room, of people who don't like this fight, and they don't like that he powered up. They don't like he won, things like that. To that I say, I don't know why you bother reading Shonen Jump, because this is 100% Shonen Jump, pure youth boy energy. I'm going to beat you by sheer force of will and overpower.
Right.
To that regard,
there's got to be a moment like this in basically every
I love those
battle series.
I love moments like that.
It's like when Luffy is just like, I'm going to beat you, and he just punches Lucci a bunch and wins.
Yeah,
he doesn't do anything differently. He just gets super determined and he just wins.
There's a cool aspect to that, and I think people might be overanalyzing the 1,000,000%. I think that's Deku just saying that he's using more energy. I don't think he can literally just channel 1,000 times more energy than he's ever had before, without his body exploding.
It's a way of him surpassing his own limits.
Yeah.
Which is another shonen sentiment.
And it was told to us before that Deku's going to keep getting stronger as All Might kind of gets weaker. It's a channeling sort of thing. But I will say I'm not super enthusiastic about this chapter, and only because this is a huge moment. Like, I like this. The chapter's called My Hero, and it's called that. It's at the very end for a very particular reason, because it's a big moment when someone looks at Deku and completely recognizes him as a hero, not as a academy student, not as a sidekick, as a hero, because he risked his life, put it on the line, and he saved the day. However, it wasn't against an opponent that's particularly memorable, and it's not to somebody whose opinion I really care that much about, because I don't like Kota that much. I get him. I understand him. He's just not that compelling. So him seeing and recognizing Deku as his hero doesn't have the same weight to me as I'd want it to.
this is a big moment because it's the first time that we've seen Deku completely 100% succeed at something that he set out to do. He did it completely on his own. There's no caveat of, but, he pushed himself too hard and so he lost the next fight that he was involved in. Or he was so preoccupied with, pulling Todoroki out of his funk that he lost the fight. Or he needed help to take down Stain. Or it's only because All Might was there to bail him out that he fought off the villains. He stepped up to this villain. He was determined to protect Kota. He knew he had to do it by himself, and he did it by himself, and he won. That's a big deal. I still don't remember the guy's name that he just beat, though.
I don't know if he had a name.
Who the fuck is this
He was
guy?
Glass-Eye Dude, right?
Right. What's it matter that Deku beat him? And why did this moment come against him? Except that he's the guy who killed Kota's parents. Which, again, that's only a coincidental connection, really, to Deku, So imagine if a guy who had fought with Deku the very first invasion when the villains first showed up at the academy and started wrecking people's shit. Imagine if someone from that group had showed up here instead after having beaten Deku easily, and then Deku beat them this time. It would probably be more,
I think it might also have more impact if this weren't kind of at the start of the fights going on in this conflict. It is kind of strange that of the first real conflict ended in this entire invasion, it seems like it would be maybe not the most vital one since they seem to be going after Bakugo, but probably the most significant one since it pertains to our protagonist.
Right.
So.
And who is presumably not going to fight again, considering although he did manage to push past having 2 broken arms in order to punch the guy really hard,
his arms really are jacked up right now. Like, if you look at them, they're just torn asunder.
Like, his left arm looks like normal bad. His right arm looks like it's been put through a grinder.
Yeah.
So, yeah, presumably Deku is actually going to be out of the fighting this time, and very early, yes. So yeah, I mean, I like parts of it, but I think that other parts of it could have been better, and then the whole package would have been really good.
It's awesome. It could have been more awesome.
All right. Briefly touching on Nisekoi, Haru cut her hair.
And she's still wearing teddy bear panties, of course.
Yeah.
Because that's the other Joker character has.
I guess it's supposed to be the completion of her story because she, has settled on what she actually wants to do, and she's like, and now I'm, kind of moving on. I'm starting a new stage of my life, and she signifies this by cutting her hair, but she still has that semi-love, semi-antagonistic relationship with Raku. So it makes me wonder if she's actually completely done. There's not as much of a note of finality as there was with Marika, for example.
Well, Nick, all of
She's
his
not as important.
Not all of his love interests can get cancer and go to fucking Pittsburgh.
Right, so I mean,
that would be awesome,
obviously, she's not going to have as big a dramatic a moment as Marika did, but you could have, at least, if this is supposed to be her moving on chapter, have her move on.
I forgot she was supposed to be a candidate. Really, I forgot.
Well, she never really was the thing. She was, a secondary candidate. She was like Mike Huckabee, basically. No one really thought she was going to win, but her name shows up on the poll, but no one really thinks she's going to win.
She's the Mike Huckabee of Nisekoi.
Yui, by the way, is the Donald Trump. No one really wants her to be the winner, but somehow she still polls pretty well. Okay, so let's move on to One Piece.
Yes.
Chapter 814. Let's go see the Cat Viper. Which, continuing the people reacting to the wanted posters, this time it's Chopper's folks at Drum Island.
Dr. Correa and Dalton.
Yeah.
And they're all wearing little reindeer hats now. It's become part of their new uniform.
Yeah, it's like new designs for the soldiers. So it's like, aw.
It's very sweet.
Um, I love this opening moment from Brook, where he's singing about going to see the Cat Viper. He's like very like Wizard of Oz style at first. Let's go see the Cat Viper. To meet the Cat Viper, we'll go. Um, and but we also get in a flashback a really cool moment from Cat Viper where everyone's like, "Oh, do you need us to go after Sanji?" And they're like, "No, but we can still catch him." And Cat Viper's like, "They're saying they want you guys to forget that this happened, so take the hint, you know." So showing wisdom, basically, which will shortly be undone by his childish antics later on, like most One Piece characters.
I mean, he literally in that's like, we ought to be the one thanking you. Oh, catnip! And then he jumps off screen. You like smelled it a mile away.
And then we cut back to the present where Brook is singing a song. It's like, "Oh, he's a lonely fellow. My heart throbs at his plight. My gaze is drawn upon his face, shining purely in moonlight. But I know that he does his best to live beneath the sun so bright." And everyone's like, "Oh, that's so lovely. Is the Cat Viper really like that?" Brook's like, "No, not really."
It's just an image song. You think Ichigo would actually listen to number one? No, you'll say number one.
Oh god, Brook is if we're going purely based on favorite Straw Hats from the last few chapters, like Sanji is number one, obviously, because of the badass moments and the character development he got. But Brook is the second because he's just been so entertaining.
Brook's been great. And he's also done a good job of kind of balancing the comedy with like trying to actually give context to things too. So it's been a really good use of Brook thus far.
Continuing the thing that I mentioned last week of it seems like Brook actually knows, what the Vince Smoke family is about before the other Straw Hats do. So anyway, in the meantime, while they're kind of reflecting on, the story that they told about where Sanji went to meet up with Big Mom's daughter, potentially to marry her, potentially to reject her, who knows? So yeah, they have to figure out, maybe we'll actually be forced to actually join Big Mom's family. Maybe Sanji will quit the crew in order to prevent our crew from being, drawn into them and so on and so forth. But, one way or the other, he knew that he had to go. And that's when the point where they're like, "Oh, the Vince Smoke family. What's up with the Vince Smoke family?" And Brook's just like, "Oh, the Cat Viper's so great. He's so cool." And then Zoro decides to be a jerk.
I just want to know, there's a panel before this where they're just talking about how Sanji left, and it cuts to Zoro, and he doesn't say anything. It's literally like one of the ... things.
Yeah.
And I very strongly considered giving Zoro my MVP of the week based on nothing he did this chapter, because I hadn't even read to the next part. I was like, oh shit, it's going to be awesome when Sanji and Zoro meet up again!
Yeah, everyone has their own reactions to stuff. Chopper's still really broken up about it. And Chopper's like, "We might never see him again." Zoro's like, "Who fucking cares?"
Fuck him! Twirly-eyed shit.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh yeah, sir, if he just vanished on us, he's gonna, at least say thanks for everything or sorry about the trouble. But come on, we have to, we're on this, course that we can't leave because, remember, he was, in this deal with Doflamingo. We destroyed the research lab on Punk Hazard, and that got Doflamingo mad. But now that we destroyed the factory at Dressrosa, the next guy down the line is going to be Kaido of the Four Emperors. So, and it's just going to be like Jack, the guy who wrecked this place. He's not some far-off menace anymore. It's only a matter of time before he comes down on us. The reason we're aligned with Trappy is for the fight ahead. And Kaido's also got his sights on Kinemon's group for a reason we don't understand yet. So we're set up for an imminent confrontation with Kaido. And then he goes and gives Big Mom another Emperor the Stink guy. Yeah, that stupid twirly-browed freak. He's like, that. Fuck that guy. Getting us into all sorts of shit. Fuck him.
It's actually a little bit of a shame, because Nami comes in to defend him, and it's kind of treated like a little bit of a comedy moment, because they both kind of have the angry, racky faces, but I'm like, it's actually a legitimate fight they're kind of having. How can you be so mean and cruel? He's like, it's small-time business that he's fucking, he's getting us involved in.
Yeah. He's getting us involved in his petty bullshit, and he's gonna have another one of the Four Emperors on our asses. Fuck that guy. Can't believe he did this to us. Oh, I'll leave you behind so you won't get involved. Fuck you! Yeah, and meanwhile Luffy's like, well, we can't figure this out ourselves, so we should go to Big Mom's and just ask Sanji about this. because he's Luffy, and the worst possible option sounds like the smartest one to him. Anyhow, but they're still on Zoe in the meantime, so they go to see the Cat Viper, and we get this big old spread of what the Cat Viper's dwelling looks like, and a whole bunch of the people that Luffy had come across before are greeting him, and so on and so forth, and Treetop Pedro, which is an awesome name, by the way, is also there, and he, I guess, is like apologizing because, like, oh yeah, those guys were mean to you earlier, so sorry about that. They also tell them about Peckham's, and he's like, oh, by the way, we've been keeping that whole thing a secret from everyone else in the kingdom. And he's doing the Garchu thing, rubbing up against Luffy while imparting him with super secret information, and he has this like really intense.
Oh my god.
Sanji's a really good guy. I'm gonna try to help you out here.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So they go into the Cat Viper's place, and he's singing a song to himself while eating lasagna and bathing.
I love lasagna.
Oh, such a fancy dish. Oh. And Chopper's like, what are you doing? You can open your wounds again. No. And why are you using your left arm to eat? You don't even have a left hand anymore.
I'm a man who loves freedom. Whoa!
I fucking love the Cat
Cat Viper's the greatest. I just love that he's just like, I shall thank you all. I will repay this debt. Believe it or not, I'm a man of honor, pride, or compassion. Oh, yeah, ball. Oh! Boing, boing, and he just dives at it. And it's not the fact that he like runs, it's that he dives like perpendicular to the ground. He goes full force.
His wounds explode.
Like, ah! He's exactly like a cat. He's very much interested in the first thing he sees, no matter the inherent physical danger it poses to him.
He's like, look, I decided to stay bedridden, but only because I decided to be bedridden. Hey, give me that cat tail and let me play with it.
That's the other best part. Chopper's like, I have to give you a shot. All right, give me that cat teaser. Ah, this is so much fun. All right, give me the shot while I'm having fun.
I have to be distracted because I hate shots.
And he gets the shot. He's like, oh, better. Chopper's like, it doesn't work instantly, you asshole. He hits him with the fucking cat teaser.
Oh god.
I'm basically Brooke in that one panel where I'm just like, oh, he's so funny.
Then they go and see Peckham's.
Yes.
And
who's a significantly less funny cat.
Yes. Well, he's like, oh yes, my power allowed me to actually avoid half the damage. Fuck that beige guy. And so Luffy is like, that wedding, who arranged for that? And Peckham says, well, that'd be our mama, and also the father of the Vinsmoke family. And Nami's like, what kind of person is Sanji's father? And Peckham says, he's a very famous man in the underworld. Ain't you heard of him? The Vinsmoke family is, well, a family of killers.
Dun, 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 dun.
So yeah, apparently Sanji comes from a line of assassins, and so this is not really, I guess, what we were really counting on, because we were like, oh, maybe they're a family of nobles, maybe they're connected to the celestial god somehow. Assassins.
Well,
okay.
To be fair, he doesn't say assassins quite yet. He says killers, which could be vaguely interpreted for a lot of things. I mean, they could be nobles, and they're just
maybe
really
they're
shitheads. Yeah.
Maybe they're hitmen,
Or just they're shitty people. I mean, it's not as though we haven't seen the, world nobles and things like that kill people before. So, maybe they're just kind of like execution squad or something like that, or, they very openly kill people.
Members of a mafia type of group.
They could still be nobility or at least aristocrat of some kind.
But this does, seem as though it's like, yeah, maybe Brooke kind of knew about this, and that's why he didn't say anything. It's like, by the way, Sanji is a murderer. But yeah, a fun chapter.
Yes.
Mostly due to Cat Viper and Brooke this week. Let's move on to Toriko. Gourmet 356. Coming together. The characters come together. Like, a lot technically happens in this, but it's not especially memorable or entertaining. There are a few points here and there that do stand out that I think, oh, that was pretty funny. And
It's
there's
basically everyone kind of broing out.
right, and there's just these recurring shots because everyone has, while they're reuniting, they're going to hang out inside of Yun, the penguin, who is a safe area. So you just see Yun like shuffling across the earth occasionally while he's got this bulge coming out of his back that's getting progressively larger and larger while they're storing more and more ingredients and people inside of him. And it's just like, that's actually kind of terrifying. It does not look creature shaped anymore. So eventually, yeah, they found Zebra and Brunch and Livebearer and Sunny and Coco and
Poison Chef.
And we get this moment basically at the end that I think is kind of funny, where all of the pairs have kind of grown closer together, and because Brunch says like I've got to take some of the full course with me, and they're like, okay, take care. But before he leaves, Zebra's like, hey, don't worry about a thing. You just go ahead and leave the rest of us.
Yeah, like you're pretty cool, bro.
And Brunch is like, well, don't get all sentimental on me. Don't say it even if you're gonna. Don't say, and also don't even bother saying it if you're just gonna be so weird about it. Also, don't die.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they got closer. And then even Sunny and Livebearer are like, Sunny's like, Livebearer, thanks for everything. Livebearer's like, we only were together for a short time, but it was fun and exciting ride, so you take care of yourself. And Coco turns to Tylen, he's like, Tylen. And Tylen's like, and so he's like, say something!
They have no character to exchange. I wanted them to both be like, poison bye! Poison bye! Like they're like Bizarro people that instead poison the words.
I thought that was really funny. They've got this whole page of sentimental goodbyes. Oh, we grew close together. And Coco and Tyler are just like...
Face.
I don't even remember, what the fuck is this guy's name? Like, one of the, discipline guys? Whatever. They set off. The important characters set off after parting ways with their partners and stuff from this. And they're gonna go to where Toriko is. And we cut over to where Toriko and Star were confronting, the Wolf King and so on and so forth. And Toriko is like, oh, that creature, I got information from the Wolf King, and so on. But then we cut away from that.
Basically, it's 4 different characters are about to tell the story we're getting in the chapter flashback or, thing. It's kind of cool and kind of weird, because I've never seen this before, where 4 different characters are essentially telling the same story to 4 different groups of people at once.
The last one being Joey explaining it to Midora. Mm-hmm. And he starts off the story by saying, I will tell you the true identity of the creature lurking within and controlling Acacia. There once was a teeny, tiny, single gourmet cell.
Heard it already. What? No, you haven't. It sounds boring. Tell me a funny story. Alright, there was a single tiny gourmet cell and cat viper. And he saw
it already.
It's just him like, oh, I love this one.
Oh, what did he get distracted by next? Oh, God. Yeah. There were a couple of good moments in there, but it's just like, whatever. Keep going. Move on to the important stuff. Been waiting for important stuff to happen for months now with Toriko now. Alright. Let's close out with World Trigger then.
World Trigger!
Chapter 129, Galapala Part 8. Fighting. More fighting. This time focusing on the fight going on in the streets outside of Border. The first few pages are basically just like, focus on those humanoid soldiers. Shoot them, shoot them, shoot them. But eventually, the soldiers that are being directly controlled by Galapala start to present problems for the Border agents. And, a few of them are getting wounded as suddenly they're, way faster and stuff. And, we cut to, wow, his name gets actually said in this chapter.
Which one?
Hang on.
Renji?
Control. Yomi. Yomi is controlling them. and he's really presenting some really tough problems to the group. But let's see, Kitora works together with Kuroe, who is from Kako's group. She's the pigtail girl, and they work together with like Kitora's spiders shot from her gun, and this weird technique that Kuroe uses, where it's kind of like a smash move, where like you charge it up and then you go along the trajectory while slashing, kind of thing.
It's Godspeed Impulse for me that Kahlua had back in Hunter x Hunter. I mean, it's literally the exact same thing. That Kahlua...
She predetermines her path and then goes along it really quickly, so she goes so fast it can't be countered, basically.
Yeah. Well, actually, it can very easily be countered.
It can very easily be countered. So they take out one of the ones that's being presenting problems, but I can see Powers, this colors kid, whose name I keep forgetting, is like the
they
color
screwed
shift.
me out. Ama.
Right. He's like, there's a new fast one nearby. The color shifted. So like, okay. And Yomi's like, wow, they're following, which ones I'm jumping between really quickly. So this is, I don't know how the hell they found that out, but this is going to present me with some problems. But then Kitora and Kuroe try to repeat their technique, and he's just like, okay, he's got a high-speed cut, but she's probably not actually thinking while she's going that fast. So in that case, I'll just leave a sword in her path when she goes for it. And so, yeah, she tries to use her skanda, her fast slash attack again, and the neighbor just kind of like folds his arms up and covers up, and then blades stick out of his shoulders, so she just slashes the fuck out of her leg instead of doing any damage to it.
Her leg, arm, and hip. She gets kind of really jacked up from that.
Right. So they're like, she's not incapacitated, but oh fuck, that was bad. So it's like, oh, that was a pretty badass moment for you, Yomi. Good first impression. And
it's just me sitting there, oh my god, Nick, is Kitora gonna have a cool, awesome solo fight?
Maybe.
Do it, Kitora!
So one of the directors at Border is like, oh fuck, what are we gonna do? Oh, should we save Commander Shinoda? And
she's like, bitch, I'm not going for every fucking neighbor who invades our place. We got people to handle this, alright?
That's essentially what he said. He just says, leave it to our field agents to complete this mission.
We literally have like 7 teams right now we're not using because we're just gonna have them in a bullshit tournament. Like, come on. I'm not leaving
Chill.
yet.
We got this. Chill.
Yeah.
So,
hey, come on.
Very just action-oriented chapter with very simple action to follow. It was entertaining enough, but, just like, that's really all there is to talk about. Kuroe and Kitora work together to use this one cool kill technique. Yomi has this power to control 2 different things at the same time, which is apparently his side effect.
Yeah, yes, basically his brain can completely function in 2 entirely different thoughts at the same time. Absolute parallel, simultaneous cerebration is the way they put it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a cool power because he's not only controlling one, like it's sort of like a video game, really.
Yeah.
Where you, like very Battlefront-esque, or like your soldier dies. It's not like you come back with a new life. It's just you take over a different soldier.
But it's like he's playing 2 games at once without it affecting it.
Which is why his controller looks so fucking weird, presumably.
Yeah. Or they just have shitty designs over in Gallipoa. The guy who invented the N64 controller is the only guy who's been inventing controllers since then.
Oh god. Yeah, they were like, original Xbox controller? Nah, it's too functional.
Well, maybe if we go back to the pre-S, the one that was 17 pounds and too big for even a giant man's hands.
I was talking about that.
Oh god, yeah, that thing was a beast.
That was amazing. Just this gigantic thing. It's like, this is our logo and nothing else.
It doesn't push in, it doesn't glow.
It really looks like you should be able to push that thing, doesn't it? It looks like a giant button.
I don't think I could take
and then they turn into a giant button for the 360 controller.
I don't think I could take one of those into a convention. I feel like they confiscate it as a blunt instrument of, like, violence. They're like, you can't...
You gotta wrap styrofoam around this thing.
Yeah, like, you can't... You have to put an orange tip or something on that, sir, so we know that it's a weapon. The Duke. Yeah. That is what they called it, that's right.
Yeah, that's it for World Trigger, and that's it for the recap portion of Weekly Manga Recap.
We did it!
Yeah. So, let's go through our favorites this week, I guess. My MVP is Cat Viper from One Piece because holy shit was he entertaining and cool and funny all at once. I mean, he really, I think, makes this chapter, and even without him, it's a pretty good chapter in terms of talking about, you know, the dramatic content, the crew dealing with Sanji's departure and stuff, you know, the implications, that the fact that they, you know, are realizing that they might have two different Four Emperors groups going on, but he pushes it way past the limits because he's so funny.
I also have Cat Viper as my MVP, and if you've known me for a while, you know I have a weakness to cats on the internet. I can watch Toons as the cat who can drive a car but not very well, and still burst out laughing every time. Cats are just inherently funny to me. And the fact that Cat Viper plays into it just so well, like he's eating lasagna and he's just like, I love lasagna, and he runs after balls and he just dives off screen like for catnip and shit. He's just funny, and it's like an extremely memorable character. Like a good backup would have been Yami from Black Clover, but this guy just I didn't expect him to be cool this chapter, and he was hilarious and awesome all in the same way. Like one of those great One Piece side characters that I love. So he got my MVP as well.
Series of the week, I have gone back and forth on this, like, because it's not a particularly good week for chapters of Jump this week. God.
Like, I wish I could pull a chapter from last week. Like, and just give it this week, when I didn't pick last week.
I'm gonna go with My Hero Academia. I've said, you know, it's like it could have been better a whole lot, but at the same time, it just feels big, you know. Even it's like if you ignore the fact that it could have had better context, as a standalone chapter, it's a really good moment. Mm-hmm. It could have been done better if you know the villain and the innocent involved were more important characters and we cared more about them. But in terms of how it plays into just Deku's story, and also in terms of just how cool that single moment is on its own, it's really cool. One Piece, like I said, was very entertaining, but that's probably really the only other contender for this. So it's going to be My Hero Academia for me, but I'm not entirely too happy with my selection there.
Yeah, I mean that's like the same thought I was going with for a while too. It's like, what do I pick? And I was debating One Piece throughout this, but I think I will agree with you and go with My Hero Academia as being the best this week, just because it is a solid moment. Even though I feel it could have been done better, it was still really cool, and I have to kind of give props to like that kind of shonen awesomeness.
So, and the audience series of the week is My Hero Academia. So it seems we are entirely unanimous on this week. Same MVP, same series of the week. So, yeah.
Oh wait, I'm changing to World Trigger now.
Fuck it. No. We're gonna democratic primary this bitch. Fuck it. No, we can't have a decision.
I want to filibuster this.
More politics jokes. Okay. Yeah, let's sign off then, I guess. Thank you everyone for joining us for Weekly Manga Recap here on hitbox.tv/RoloT, where we record the show each Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, although sometimes we do need to change things up, so be sure to follow us on Twitter to stay updated. He's at RoloT, I'm at Roller of Time. We are at WMR Podcast. You can check out all of our episodes on our YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to that. You can check us out on iTunes. Subscribe, leave a comment, leave a rating. And
nobody's doing that. We're dead in the water, Nick. We're slowly drifting off. You might as well have a shotgun to the back of my head. I might as well be like the dog at the end of the movie, and I've gone feral, or I'm slowly going in, and they're like, we'll just take him outside and shoot him right behind the woodworkers podcasting shed. And I'm like, no!
Which they built!
They built it themselves, those assholes.
Also, all of our stuff is on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. Be sure to send criticism, ask us questions, suggest manga for us to read. Send all that stuff to weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. Even if it's as bad as Aki Sora, don't feel ashamed about suggesting.
We set a new standard low.
Right. we need good series and bad series to talk about for Weekly Manga Recap. So, the worse and the better, either way. Special thanks go out to all of our Patreon supporters because your support allows us to create all sorts of bonus content for you guys to enjoy. Just yesterday, Chris and I streamed our latest movie commentary, which was on Bleach, the fourth movie, Hellverse, which turned out to be one of our best commentaries yet. It was the first one that neither of us had watched, and so we were both completely caught off guard by how stupid that movie is. It was glorious. A lot of fun, a very bad, entertaining movie.
Yes, it should be up on our Patreon. If you missed it, it should be up on the Patreon. Basically, by the time, if you're listening live, it'll be up soon. But if you're listening to us on YouTube or on Channel Awesome or anything like that, or iTunes, it should be up on our Patreon by this point.
And we will have a second one coming this month because technically that one was just the January commentary. And due to my schedule going to shit, we kind of had to just do it when we had the chance, which was a couple days late. So,
but
we got it. We did it, and I'm so glad that we did. Special thanks finally go out to Steve Manor. You can find him at NeuronFanboy.com. I drop his Tumblr, Patreon, Steve Manor, so many places. And also to Infamous Planet and Felix Stark, who have created visual editions of our podcast. Infamous Planet did the frame for our stream that you see around our faces right now. And, so that's everything.
Also, I forgot to do it when it first came up. Want to give a special thanks to Lord Seth, Rebecca, and Michael Talley, our newest patrons. So thank you very much, guys.
Infamous, he didn't even use that meme correctly to insult me. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
You fucked that one up. And what the... He's like, I always don't like how people make fun of the fact that I don't read. And he's like, I'm just gonna go after one joke that I know about Nick.
Oh, God. Alright. Chris, what are we gonna cover?
I had no time! You don't do anything all day!
Does he only do these things like in the last 5 minutes of the show? Oh no, they're wrapping up. I better make a meme to insult Nick for using they, even though he don't use they anymore.
Don't good guy Steve yet. Oh, better have it. A good guy Greg. One of those things.
Oh god. What are we gonna do, Chris?
I have a manga suggestion here. This is from Christy. She sent in a couple here. I figured we are in February. We didn't make it an official thing, but why not get a little bit of romance in this month? So she sent in quite a few romance suggestions. She put good and
Aki
bad
Sora
ones.
again.
Yeah, I'm like, this one's about a couple with an untraditional relationship who might just have to struggle to find love within their own family. It's called, shit, Nick, I just picked the same one again. No, she had some good and bad ones. And what I loved about this email is she notes, I won't be upset if you like one of the bad ones or you hate one of the good ones. So I'm already like in a good mindset here. So I figured, since Aki Sora was pretty awful, let's try one of the good ones. Let's see if we can bounce back from that. I get the feeling we probably still won't like it. But, that said, we're going to be taking a look at a series called Akagame no Shirayuki Hime, which more traditionally is known as Snow White with the Red Hair.
Oh, I've heard good things about that series.
I know I've seen images for it, the anime, but I don't know much about it, and reading the description, it seems, I guess, like a series that's similar in some aspect to the fairy tale, like takes elements of it, but I wonder how you stretch the Snow White fairy tale into a 72-plus chapter series, so we shall see. We might not have it this week, but probably the week afterwards or something like that.
Okay.
It's called Snow White with the Red Hair, guys. The Japanese name, maybe what it goes by some places, but more traditionally it's known as Snow White with the Red Hair.
Okay.
So that's it.
That's what we're gonna do. So thank you everyone for joining us. We're gonna sign off now.
I was really strongly considering. I didn't know how I was gonna do it, but I was like, Nick, our next manga suggestion is gonna be Black Mirror, the episode where the Prime Minister has to fuck a pig on television. Let's do it.
Can't be worse than Aki Sora.
It's surprisingly much better.